All right, let's do it live on a Monday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Bo. Z is off, but he will join momentarily from the beaches of South Florida. Look, this is certainly 2 hours ago, not the show we were anticipating doing, but life changes. It comes at you quick, and are certainly aware of the trade request of Myles Garrett. The quote, as a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl, and that goal fuels me today now more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns had made this one of the toughest decisions of my life. These past 8 years have shaped me into the man I am today. While I've loved calling this city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It was always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I've requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, from the Browns' perspective, we've seen this from various beat writers. We've seen it from some of the national folks as well. The organizational stance on this is what Andrew Berry said last week. Not trading Myles Garrett. That's it. That's the list. So you're at a bit of an impasse here as this trade request for Myles Garrett hit about 2 hours ago. There was some consternation around this towards the end of the season. Myles had his availability at the end of the season. Obviously, AB, he had his as well. And the feeling kind of had was that there must have been some sort of an agreement that was reached, or at least an understanding. And this one does come out of nowhere. I did not see this one coming, so much so that we and I hate to do this. You take time off, you deserve your time. But it does seem when you go to Florida, my friend, big things tend to happen. I don't know what it is with that. It's crazy. I don't think I've overstepped with anything. From my vantage point, obviously, this is pretty shocking to come out 11 o'clock on the Monday before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, very surprising, to be honest with you. You know, Myles was just down at the Pro Bowl representing not only himself, but the Cleveland Browns. And so, yeah, to get this kind of a week, Monday of Super Bowl week was certainly a big, big surprise, because you were I heard what you were saying earlier there, that, you know, you had Myles at the end of the year, you know, and there was some consternation about this, you know, towards the end of the season. And Myles kind of had hinted at it, but said, you know, need to go talk to them, hear their plan. And then if you remember on Hard Knocks, they interviewed him. He said basically that he had talked and that the Browns are a lot closer than people think, and he felt good about that. And so that was kind of the last image that you really had seen publicly talked about it, was Myles saying that. And so you kind of thought, okay, well, it seems like they're on the same page there. And then obviously you get this announcement here today. And look, Andrew Berry was adamant down at the Senior Bowl when asked would he trade Myles Garrett. He said no. And that's the Browns' position right now. Myles is still under contract for 2 more years, and I think that's their position. So how this plays out, I don't know. You would have loved to have had something like this never be in public, per se, because I don't know that it helps anybody involved. But, you know, there's always parts of negotiations that happen, and sometimes people, you know, want to negotiate in public because it gives them more leverage. And certainly it's hard to imagine that the Cleveland Browns would have usurped the Super Bowl on Super Bowl week, and yet here we are because of the demand of Myles Garrett, who is, you know, the best edge defender in the league, defensive player of the year last year, could be defensive player of the year again this year. And so, yeah, this is one that, you know, kind of rocks it to its very foundations. But as we've been talking about all along, we've had Myles, we had, you know, Joe Thomas, all of those guys in their prime. And the reasons this organization has not been able to do what Myles wanted to do, which is play for a Super Bowl, is because they have not gotten the quarterback position right. And that is something that they are going to have to do very quickly. And I've spent some time, and we'll talk about when I come back Wednesday, but, you know, watching the top quarterbacks in this draft, and there definitely are guys that are certainly capable of turning it around here with the Cleveland Browns. So I think that's still the overarching thing. And now this is, we didn't think it would kind of, as one of your sayings, you know, second may as well be eighth. We thought that any other kind of off-season news would be second being eighth relative to getting a quarterback. But now with Myles making this public declaration, that, you know, that becomes a pretty close second.
It does. And the, you know, as you're going through your positional reviews, which we've done over the course of the last couple of weeks, and one of the things that you can't help but notice is that there's a lot of things that need to be addressed roster-wise. We haven't necessarily got old quick, but we kind of got old quick. And we got expensive and old quick, kind of all at the same time. And so, you know, the thing that we don't know, and look, they're not going to, the front office is not going to tell us this. This is because it doesn't do them any good to. But what we don't know is what their approach to this offseason is. because you can
Right.
say whatever you want publicly, but behind closed doors, maybe it's different. We don't know if this is a not tear down to the studs, but a real remodel of this home, or if this is going to get a couple of coats of paint. I think the former is probably required if you're going to inevitably chase down a Super Bowl. Is that you probably need a remodel
100%.
here. A coat of paint is not going to do it, and there aren't quarterbacks that are available in the can of paint world. That's remodel world. So you've gotten a lifeline with this number 2 pick in the draft, and now a wrench kind of thrown in that publicly, at least, with the trade request for Myles. And you've reiterated, I reiterated what Andrew Berry had to say. We're not trading him. You call me with this, hang up, whatever, all of that. If they are to get back in the fold with him, and if they are, if AB is a man of his word, and he's not going to trade him, which we have no reason to believe that he would, what does the path to that look like?
You draft the right quarterback at number 2, period, right? I mean, I really think that's it as we sit here today, and that's why I keep saying this asset has got to be a real shot at a quarterback. Now, you could push that into next year, but I think this year, I watched a bunch of Shedeur Sanders on the way down. I've got Cam Ward queued up and watched a little bit of him, and we'll watch more on the way back. These are guys, there are players in this draft at that position that you can win with, and you are set up with Kevin Stefanski, the 2-time Coach of the Year, with Tommy Rees, with Bill Musgrave, to put a quarterback or a young quarterback in a good environment to get the most out of their talents. And I think that's the only path, isn't it, to get that position right, and that's why it has been number 1. It has to be the overarching thing. And while Myles is a critically important piece of what you do, and you want to keep the best edge defender in the league with you with that young quarterback, the only way that you're going to be able to do that is to draft that player. And so perhaps you still have that opportunity, as we thought all along. Perhaps this is a way, that for Myles and the Browns, this is saying, okay, look, if we're doing this long-term together, let's get that done. Let's see what that looks like. And perhaps it's getting more expensive, but you want to have that in place because it's still the overarching goal of this organization has to be to get a quarterback that you truly believe can compete with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Because until you get somebody of that ilk, you're not winning the Super Bowl. Now, again, there are ways to go about it. Be 10-7 every year, and that would certainly be a lot more fun. But eventually, that gets old when you don't win a Super Bowl. If the goal is to win a Super Bowl, quarterback still has to be the top priority, and you'd love to be able to get a rookie to pair with Myles Garrett because that's how that makes those things feasible. And you saw what a remodel can do. And you saw it, I think, not only in Denver with Bo Nix, you saw it certainly in Washington with Daniels, and I think New England, who kind of really did rip it down to the studs, feels pretty good about where they are with Drake May. Atlanta feels pretty good where they are with Michael Penix. So you've got to be able to get that guy, and you have an opportunity at number 2 to do that.
And this, our great friend, the Hoff, Myles, like you think about guys of that, first ballot Hall of Fame guys, right? And the reality is Myles was as good this year as he was last year, and we went 3-14. Yep. So if you don't have offensive weaponry, if you do not have the quarterback, the rest of this stuff, they're building blocks, they're foundational pieces, but there's a hard ceiling on how far you can go that way. You have got to score points in bunches, and you got to have elite quarterback play, and you got to have weapons. That's it. That's what this whole offseason has to be about. It's not any more complicated than that.
Yeah, this doesn't change that. This just gives you a closer number 2 priority than perhaps you had expected.
Yes. What do we and look, you and I are in this is a difficult spot, right? We do Cleveland Browns Daily. Yep. I'm sitting in the facility at the moment doing it. You're on vacation, which I hate bugging you on the vacation. And we'll get you out of here quickly. Right. Just in terms of trying to, let's just entertain the rest. How difficult is it to trade him? Because I'm looking at some of this stuff of these folks who talk about like the cap. I guess there's always a way around those things, but it seems like this is a very difficult. Even if they wanted to entertain it, and again, Andrew Berry's saying no chance, and I take him at his word, no chance. But even if they tried to flip that, I don't even know how. I think it's a very difficult thing to try to do.
I think that they'd be able to get takers. It just is going to come with costs to the Browns, $36 million in dead money. So because they've restructured him to push money forward so they can load up the roster around him, that's some of the things that makes it. It's not like, oh, you're at the part of his contract that's not guaranteed anymore. It's just an easy send across. No, it's not because of the dead money that you would come associated with it. Now that is, again, small potatoes. I think that they're very good working around the cap. And again, when you have the quarterback, and it feels like the only guy that would solve that would be a quarterback on a rookie contract. That's going to make things a lot easier for you. You're going to come free of the Deshaun Watson money in a couple of years, but you still have the ability to put together a very good football team right now. The key is, though, the quarterback, and that's where all eyes are going to go, not only in free agency, because I think it's a two-pronged approach, but the big home run swing, obviously, is likely to come via this draft.
Diana Rossini with this. While I just want to, God, you got to triple verify, as you know. Diana Rossini with this. While Myles Garrett's public trade request is the story of the week already, it wasn't a surprise to the Cleveland Browns. They've known about this request for quite some time. That is from Diana Rossini reporting that the Browns have been aware of this for quite some time. I can't speak to that or not. She's reporting it. She's pretty dialed in.
Sure.
So do with that what you will. So I wonder if they knew about it. Did they know about it when AB spoke down? And I would lead me to believe, based on her reporting, that they knew about this when AB was available last week at the Senior Bowl.
And so perhaps that was more than a talking point to other teams.
Yeah.
That could have been a public, at the time we didn't realize it, a public talking, and this is a public response, which I could see that. And that actually, knowing if that timeline makes sense, it makes a little bit more sense, some of the wording I think maybe that Myles used, because maybe he felt like AB saying that at the Senior Bowl definitively was more than what we knew it was at the time.
Yeah, that would add up, and then this is the player's public response to that. So, there you go.
Yeah. I feel confident they're going to work it out. He's, as I said, under contract for 2 years here. Andrew Berry says they're not trading him. They're under no obligation to trade him. We've seen people make trade requests in the past that were not. Remember David Njoku made a trade request that I want to be traded, and they said, well, you're not getting traded, and they've worked it out, and he's had a very prosperous career here with the Cleveland Browns. So I think that sometimes these things are more, negotiation and posturing. Otherwise, It wouldn't be done in public. So it's, take it with a grain of salt, and remember that I think the focus and number one over everything is getting a quarterback. And if you get a quarterback, Myles Garrett and everybody wants to play here.
Yeah.
So that should be what everybody's focused on, because that is the key to everything.
It's pretty simple, folks. It's the winning. People like winning.
Yep.
You win and you have quarterbacks, and that's the way all of those things go. Hey, be safe down there. Watch out for the birds.
Yeah, lots of birds.
They're everywhere.
Not a place for you, Bo.
No, God, no. Now you
thousands of them, literally.
Get yourself a retriever or something to go run a little, little interference on those things, buddy.
Interference, yeah. I just kind of flap my arms around and caw, and there they go.
Well, guard Miss K with your life, and we'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. By the way, don't ever go to Florida again.
I know. I told her. I said it's off. Arizona, we've always had great luck, great weather.
Man.
No big news. Florida, though, it's been left and right every time we come down here.
You get left and right. You got birds everywhere. We got breaking news every time you come. All right, buddy. Enjoy
exactly.
it.
All right. See ya.
All right, just so the audience and certainly some of you who listen and watch loyally will recall this. Pretty sure Zagura was in Florida for Jarvis Landry being released. Pretty sure he was in Florida for the signing of Jadeveon Clowney. Pretty sure he was in Florida at the beginning of the pursuit of Deshaun Watson. So, he goes to Florida. This is what comes with it. Is this? Look, these things. This is now, it's a public. Diana Rossini, I have no reason to not believe. She's very, very good, well sourced. The idea that the Browns knew about this, according to her reporting, for quite some time is noteworthy. I think. I think that does make Myles' comments publicly today, the public shot back across the bow is what that is. And then certainly you've seen the reporting in terms of our response to this of being very steadfast in the notion of not trading Myles. I think the Rossini reporting gives you context on what Andrew Berry said last week down in Mobile, to the respect of, hey, he was, according to Rossini, he would have been aware that this trade request had been made, and that was his response to the league, which was essentially, I'm not taking calls. We're not moving him. So that's kind of the way that goes, and I think that does make a little bit more sense with the way that trickled out yesterday. A lot of layers to this. Obviously, the official layers of the organization, the official comments from Myles, and then all of kind of the offshoots of this thing via how this roster gets shaped. What part of that Myles can be sold upon and you take Andrew Berry at his word, we're not trading Myles Garrett. So then the question becomes, how do you shape this roster to make him happy? He's difficult to trade. You could figure it out. You're going to have to take on some costs, as Z put out, if you were able to trade him. But again, they have no interest in trading him. They've made that abundantly clear. That being said, this now being out there in the public sphere allows for teams to start calling them about him. So there's that part of it that's out there as well. And so how do you convince Myles Garrett to be locked in, to be the face of the organization, to not be interested in playing somewhere other than Cleveland, and to take back his trade request? Quite simply, you build a winner very quickly. So you need to hit on a quarterback somehow, free agency, draft, one way or another, and you need to get this thing flipped around very quickly. They have a lot of picks. They have a lot of assets. They have a lot of things that need Band-Aids on them. So this was a critical offseason to begin with, critical offseason in terms of the draft, in terms of redoing some contracts to make the cap work, and now this is just another layer on top of it, the official trade request of Myles Garrett, which became public today, but again, according to the reporting of Diana Rossini, was not something that surprised the Browns, although a very big surprise to the rest of us as we kick off Super Bowl week. We will get into what this would look like financially. We will hear from some of the preeminent luminaries in the sport, their reactions to this. You will hear from AB down at the Senior Bowl too, his thoughts on Myles, the ones we've alluded to many, many times. You have that to look forward to. Schefter was on RBS this morning. We'll have that for you as well. Second hour of the program, Siciliano will join right at 2 o'clock, and then at 2:30, Dan Graziano will join as well, as this is obviously the topic of the day in the sports world. And what was a crazy sports weekend to begin with, this only adds to it. We're off and running on a Monday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. We're presented by Ballybet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back in Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Ballybet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. That first segment, I should mention, were the hot topics today, presented by University Hospitals, official healthcare partner of your Cleveland Browns. Gibbe is here. Hello, Gibbe.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great.
Sun's not out.
No, it is warm.
Yeah, maybe. All right.
It is warm.
That's good.
Yeah.
What a day. We literally had a rundown put together, and
Sure you did.
at about 11:15, G-Man looked at me and he goes, so Myles just requested a trade. And
That's right.
just threw it away and said, good news, we'll start all over.
Yeah. And again, to reiterate, the stance of the Cleveland Browns is what Andrew Berry said at the Senior Bowl, what he said in his postseason press conference is it, which is they're not trading Myles Garrett. Save your time. Don't call us. That being said, it obviously is the story of the day. And I was just trying to think from the perspective of like this town and the sports legends in it. What is a similar to this? Like LeBron never demanded asked for a trade or requested a trade. There was none of that. He held the league hostage, but he didn't necessarily say, I would like to be moved.
I don't think Tommy...
Is there a baseball guy from like the 90s Indians that would have...
I don't think anybody requested. Like CeCe got traded.
Right.
But that wasn't him willingly wanting to be on
Did
board
Lindor request a trade?
Oh, hell, Kyrie.
Yeah.
I was going to say the closest thing would be
Kyrie.
Kyrie, but this is miles ahead of that. No pun intended.
Yeah, it's Kyrie. That was probably... I quite honestly, the Kyrie. It's funny retrospectively on that. A lot of people said, "Oh yeah, I saw this coming," but I don't remember anybody writing it.
No,
because when that came out, it felt like it was out of nowhere. Like, hold on, and then after he requested it, then it became, "Oh yeah, I saw this coming." Well, nobody wrote it until after. Nobody talked about it until after. This one, there were rumblings at the end of the season, and so much so that Myles was asked about it on Hard Knocks. About it, if he was happy with where the organization was heading, to the point where Andrew Berry's been asked about it twice. So, like, there was some conjecture that this potentially could be the case for Myles here. So there's a little bit of that in it.
So this is from our good friend Jake Trotter.
Go ahead.
1 year ago,
talked
to Myles Garrett. And I want to make sure I get the context right from Trotter. This is what Myles Garrett told me a little over a year ago. And he said, I'm not judging or trying to demean anyone else on their journeys, but for me, being with the team that drafted you your entire career and winning a championship with them is the most special thing you can do in your career. That's why I'm always going to be committed to this city. As long as they have me, I'm going to be here to do my best to elevate this team, elevate this community and the city, and bring it all home. And can this get worked out? Absolutely. He's under contract, like you said, for 2 years. And by the way, there's franchise tags. There's things like 2 years. The next few months is going to be very interesting to see how this all gets worked out.
I think we got to get to I think organizationally what you got to do, though, at this point is you can't let it get to there. You got to, and if Diana Rossini is reporting and she's locked in, I'm sure she's accurate on everything she says, but if her reporting is accurate, and I believe that it likely is, and that we've known about this for a while, then all of this does start to make more sense. Andrew's comments at the Senior Bowl started to make more sense. Obviously, Myles' line in here, the goal is never to go from Cleveland to Canton. I mean, that is a direct line that AB used in his press conference post. I mean,
correct.
Was it in the Real Sports or the HBO?
Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks. He used that exact line there. He used it in the press conference. So it clearly is Myles picked up on that and put that in his statement. So that's all there. This is all being done publicly now. The organization knew about it. They've made their stance abundantly clear. We're not trading him. The end. In fact, if you don't believe me on this, here was AB. Kev, do we have this? This was AB last week at the Senior Bowl on Myles Garrett.
So if someone sees you at dinner tonight and says, we'll give you 2 months for Myles, you say I'm not interested.
How about 3? You can put that on record.
Correct? You can put that on record?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. It's on the record.
I mean, it's there.
Yeah. In terms of there's other reverberations of this, too, to pay attention to because – and I don't know if it was – we knew that there was a window. I mean, you drafted all these guys. You start with Myles and Denzel and Chubb and Bake, and all those guys were drafted around the same time. They were added to a team that had Bitonio, and then you acquire Teller, and you start to get pieces around, and you're building a roster out. The acquisition of Jack Conklin was a huge acquisition. The drafting of Jeremiah Usukormo and Grant Delpit and Martin Emerson and all this stuff, right? It was all part of this big piece that you were putting together. But as we were going through the positional rankings, like Z and I last week, one point, I said, boy, you start to say, like, we need in this room, we need in this room, we need in this room. So what the onus will be on from Andrew Berry, from organizational standpoint, to Myles, will be, here's how we are going to be back to being a Super Bowl contender quickly. When Myles said those comments to Jake, there was so much hope that you would get a healthy Deshaun Watson playing in a shotgun offense and all the things that came with that. There was all this hope that Nick Chubb would be able to come back in relatively short order and be some version of himself. Well, those things didn't happen, unfortunately, of no fault of their own. Deshaun went down with an Achilles injury. Nick got injured again for the season, and so was never able to get to full speed. So from Myles' perspective, you're looking at this, you're going, boy, we're a long ways off. Meantime, Andrew Berry, ownership may have a stance of going, actually, we're not. We're a pick here, we're a pick there. You look at Jaden Daniels in Washington. Where was that organization a year ago? But they hit on that kid. He was great.
Turn it around.
He validated it, and all of a sudden they were in the NFC Championship game. So it can flip very quickly. I think the one thing that, and this is me talking, obviously, not organizationally, you just would like this from now on, whatever goes forward here, to be handled behind closed doors and privately, and the mending of the fences between Myles and the front office and the staff and all of it to convince him that this is where he can win a Super Bowl. That's the job.
Yeah, and actions will speak maybe louder than words.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, you've got to hit on picks. You've got to have a really good free agency. You have to make the most of your cap space. You've got to fill holes. Andrew said it, I think, at the Senior Bowl or in his final end of the season presser. Actually, last week at the Senior Bowl. The goal is to have all of the holes filled so then you could just go out and get talent in the NFL draft. There are some holes to fill on this football team. And this front office and this coaching staff has been tasked with, over the next 3 months, taking care of that and plugging the holes and finding the right people. Can Myles is under contract. Can the next 3 months show Myles, hey, you want to be here?
Yeah.
This is what we're doing. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah, and there's a long way to go. I mean, it is, by the way, February 3rd.
12 weeks, by the way.
Yeah, you're a long way from draft. You're a long way from some of these things. Free agency is kind of you got the combine and then free agency. That's just kind of chronologically how it works. All right, just from let's hear from Mike Garafolo. He had this on NFL Network shortly after the Myles Garrett trade demands were made public. Here's Mike.
Browns general manager Andrew Berry has said that there would be no stops in between, that he intended for Myles Garrett to be drafted a Cleveland Brown and to end his career as a Cleveland Brown. That has been the stance of the organization. Go back to the trading deadline. We reported that teams were interested in possibly trading for Garrett, and the Browns were adamant they were not going to trade him. They would not entertain offers, and they didn't at the time. My understanding is, despite this statement, the Browns are sticking to their stance, and they do not intend to have any conversations or trade Garrett. I was told that this morning in light of that statement that has been released.
So, just if you're curious, and you ought to be because this is a curious topic, what compensation looks like of trading a star defensive end. The most recent one of these to be traded was Khalil Mack, and he was traded at age 27.
Correct.
And Myles is 29, so Myles has 2 years on him. Myles more accomplished at the time of the trade. Khalil Mack's a stud, absolutely. And I believe it was 3 1s for Khalil Mack, or was it 2?
It might have been 2 1s and 2 2s.
2 1s, 2s, 3s. Most of the stuff that I see in terms of starting this off is 2 1s or 1, multiple 2s and 3s. That's kind of the compensation that you're looking at.
So the Bears gave up 2 first-round picks,
Okay.
a third-round pick, and a 6th round. Is that
1
right?
6, 1 3rd, and 2 1s.
Hold on.
That
No.
seems right.
Yeah. A potential trade comp. This is from Adam Schefter. When 27-year-old Khalil Mack was traded from Oakland to Chicago, the Bears gave up 2 first-round picks, a third and a sixth. They got Mack. They got a second-round pick back and a conditional fifth. So they got additional assets. The Bears did.
The Bears did?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're talking about multiple assets exchanging hands if you were going to make that move.
Yeah.
But you've got to figure out if something were to happen, and right now, as of 1:31 on Monday, February 3rd, it's not happening. But if a trade happens, what do you do with the dead cap? There's a big – you can maneuver around the salary cap, but that's a big number right there.
Yeah, this is from Sport Track. Trading Myles Garrett, new team acquires 19.8 non-guaranteed in 2025, $25 million non-guaranteed in 2026, a dead cap the Browns would hit of 36.2, and he will be seeking a deal. So there's that part of it as well, currently projecting 4 years, $137 million. So there's a restructure. There's also a new contract part of it that could be in play for Myles.
And
that's
is that part
too.
of the big picture of all this? You know, is it Myles wanting to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL or the highest paid player in the NFL? There's a lot.
I don't know. We don't know.
We don't know.
We're flying blind on that. You don't know what the motivation is, and it goes back to with these guys, whether it's Myles or look anybody in front office, anybody in life. What it comes down to is what's your why. I don't know what makes Myles tick. I don't know if it is more money in a new contract with the Browns. I don't know that. I don't know if you take him at his word in the statement and that he wants to go chase a Super Bowl. Look, this isn't any shocking amount of information or shocking statement. We're not a Super Bowl contender. We're not. We went over this. We went 3-14. Like, you are what your record says you are, and in order to get back to anywhere in that vicinity, you've got to have a dude at quarterback. Have to. There's no way around it. If you don't have that, you don't really have anything. So you got to land that piece first, and then once you land that piece, then the rest of the things kind of fall into place. But it's currently constructed, not. Now, that can all flip with the number 2 pick in the draft. It's not going to flip in free agency. There are no free agent quarterbacks that are going to paratroop in here, and we're going to sit here going, oh, yeah, Super Bowl contender. That ain't it. There's in terms of trading for them, that's why the bounty for Deshaun Watson is what it was, because at the time of his acquisition, this guy was the number 1 quarterback in the NFL. He led the NFL in passing at the time you acquired him. So that's why it costs what it cost to get him, and you weren't alone. There were other teams in the mix too, because you had this team that was all coming together all at the same time, and all you needed was a franchise quarterback who was a top 5 to 7 player in the league at the position. And that's what Deshaun Watson was at the time of acquisition. So that's how you get where you are now. And the reality is the only way to get out of this from a organization standpoint is to land that quarterback. And Nathan's been saying this, and I think the way he says it's the perfect way to say it. Either directly at 2 or the number 2 overall pick asset has to net you the quarterback solution for the next 5 years. Has to. That's the job.
No, yeah. you don't have a choice.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to this is interesting. John Dorsey, when he sat down with us at the NFL Combine.
Yeah.
His first NFL Combine. Top 5 positions. Mm-hmm. Quarterback, edge rusher, wide receiver, shutdown corner, offensive tackle. In no particular order. He said, those are the 5.
Yeah.
You got to have those 5. Well, I mean, you've got one in your building.
Yeah.
You don't have to let him go.
No, you don't. No.
For the next 2 years, he's in your building. You have a shutdown corner in Denzel Ward.
You do.
You know, Jerry Jeudy, pretty good wide receiver.
Pretty good.
Think he's a number 1 now. You know, Andrew Berry said it himself. Got to look at the tackle position. Got some things to figure out there. And the quarterback.
Big Thanos can do it if he's healthy.
Correct.
Like, he looks like a 1 if he's healthy. But then it all comes back to the last one. And the only thing I would push back on Dorse when he said that, and he probably would have punched me if I had, but I would have just said, that's fine on those 5, but 1 is 1 and second's 8th.
Yeah.
Like 8 through 12 is everything else, and 1 is quarterback. And it's a gap. between them. And if you don't have the first one, then the rest of it is minimal.
It goes back to the conversation we had last week. We played, Florio and Sims talking about Jamar Chase compared. Would you rather have Jamar Chase or would you rather have this,
quarterback?
Yeah, this quarterback. No, the answer is quarterback every time.
Every time.
Because without the quarterback, nothing else matters.
Nope.
In this day and age in the NFL, nothing else matters.
No, it's that simple. You got to have it. So in terms of what's next, this will be really loud today, and then it will die out, and you'll get into Super Bowl week, and you'll move on, and then at least publicly, and then behind closed doors, conversations will have probably already been having taken place between Myles's leadership and the folks that represent him and the Browns, and they will work out things behind the scenes. It's possible that there will be more public flare-ups when you request a trade like this. One thing that you've I always get the sense that if you are, whatever league you're in, if you request a trade, if you do that publicly, once you do that, it's kind of the gloves are off moment, and you have to say to yourself, if you're the agency and you're representing, you almost have to say, like, okay, like this, be ready. This is going to get ugly, and you got to be able to kind of handle that. Now, there's a great relationship between Myles and everybody here in the organization, and hopefully this can all be buttoned up rather quickly, and he can be happy again, and all can go good and well, and you won't have to you'll be able to take Andrew Berry at his word, and you won't trade him no matter what. Let's hope that's the case.
Yeah.
But if they are steadfast in this, if Myles's group is steadfast in this, isn't he represented by Clutch? I'm pretty sure he's Clutch. Will you check Myles's Clutch?
LeBron's people, yep.
Okay, so he's represented by Clutch. So they have, in that league, been experts in finding a way of getting guys' homes away from where they were.
I know where you're
experts in this. And to do that, you got to sometimes play in the deep end of the pool. And they're willing to do that. So hopefully this all goes smoothly. He gets all on the same page. He believes with the plan that Andrew Berry and the organization has put in front of him, and you can get him to come back into the fold and be happy and be back on his way going from Cleveland to Canton. But if he digs in, the other side of this can get ugly.
Yeah. Andrew Brandt, who we've had on before, the business of sports, had this tweet earlier 2 hours ago. Garrett is a superstar NFL player, but he is still a level below a star NBA player. NBA superstars can basically trade themselves. NFL superstars cannot.
No.
He said, remember when Aaron Rodgers wanted out of Green Bay in 2021? The Packers basically said, that's cute. No.
Yep. No. Yeah, that's it. Like it is not the NBA. You can't do it that way. If you that's hopefully all of that can be avoided though, because that's the thing that you can't have is you cannot have. You don't. I guess let me rephrase. You don't want this with the most beloved player. I mean, you guys go to the stadium. We go to the stadium. You're there every game. He is the loudest ovation every single week. He's the most popular player on the team for right reason. Him and Nick, but Nick's been hurt the last couple of years. So it's been Myles he's been the face of the organization. You do not want this to go publicly negative with him.
Correct. That it needs to be handled behind closed doors. Hopefully both sides can do that. And,
yes.
We'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to be really popular at the Combine, buddy.
God, there's be a lot going on. Going to be a lot going on there, brother.
We're going to need upgrades to the presidential suite that week.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's where you stand on that. Mm-hmm. That's where we are at the moment. Coming up next, some more context on this from a league perspective. Schefter joined RBS earlier today. We will have that conversation for you coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Ballybet, official sports betting partner, your Cleveland Browns on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Boost your game day this season with the Ballybet Sportsbook app. Place your first bet at 25 or more, and you get $150 back in bonus bets. Ballybet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. Nice job by RBS this morning. Right before we got on, they were able to mobilize quickly, get Adam Schefter on the program. Let's go ahead and dip in and have a little bit of listen to Shefty with RBS from earlier today.
How shocked
You're down 6.5.
Adam at this and the timing of it right now? Did he come to you and give you this information?
No, this was a statement that he released to various members of the media.
Okay.
And I don't think it's surprising that he's requested a trade. I think he's been unhappy and he wants to win, and it's important for him to try to win a Super Bowl, and he doesn't feel like they're making progress now. And I think that the people that spoke to him throughout the season recognized and sensed his frustration. This is not new. I think the fact that it came out today, okay, we can make a little bit of a case that that's a surprise.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is he's felt this. He just verbalized it and publicized it today. He could have waited to the start of the combine. He could have waited until Super Bowl. He could have done it any time. But I think from his standpoint, he wants to get the ball rolling. He wants people to know he wants out. He's not waiting. And that's how he is approaching this.
Adam, Tony Grossi here. Do you think that he has told the Browns this privately before he issued this statement?
This is. I do not believe this is a surprise to them. I think that they were aware of his feelings.
Because they got back to us, Adam, and said that they have no plans of entertaining offers for Myles Garrett. Now, obviously, that could change, and maybe that's what they have to say at this time. But at the end of the year, he said he would talk to the Browns about their offseason plans. Am I to assume that he talked to them and didn't like the plans if he came out with this now?
No, I wouldn't say that that's the case at all. I don't know how we got from there to here. I don't know the steps along the way that leads him today to say this. I'm just guessing.
Okay.
I think he says to them what he says. I think they say, we're not trading you. We have no interest in trading you. I think there's dialogue, and I think he feels like he's at the point where he has to publicize this to try to move it along. That's my guess. I don't know that.
I saw your tweet about the Khalil Mack situation, how this is similar. How many teams do you think will be interested in Garrett? What do you think the Browns can get for him?
I would say that there will probably be about 31 other teams interested in Myles Garrett, if I had to guess.
But he wants to go to a contender. I mean, this is a move to, he said he wants to play in a Super Bowl. So, I mean, I know the Browns aren't in a great position right now, but there's a lot of teams that are not. And then what about compensation? Is this like an automatic 2 number 1 thing for us or not?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think the Browns and Andrew Berry have been very clear that they're not trading Myles Garrett. And Andrew Berry was even asked, would you trade him for 2 number 1s? And he said, no, that wouldn't change my stance. So I think we're at something of a standoff here. We got a team that says it's not trading its star player. We got a player who says he wants to be traded. And now I think it's a question of what happens from here. Do the Browns go to him and say, hey, here's what we're doing. Who do you want to bring in? Here's a new contract. Do they appease him in that regard? How far are they willing to go to appease him? Or is Myles Garrett willing to sit? Because if he's willing to sit and be hardline on this, then he can make life uncomfortable, and that wouldn't be good for the team. So who's going to give in on their stance? Is Myles going to give in on the moves that they make and what they do, or is he not? Is he dead set, dug in? Like, again, we've heard plenty of players request trades before. Nothing ever happens, okay? So I think the key part here is how each side handles it from here. But I think when a player goes public, he feels like that's the last resort to making it public and to try to help the process along.
Adam, in your experience with the NFL, because we know in the NBA when a guy requests a trade, especially a star, it usually means he's gone. What percentage of the time, do you think that it's like recoverable, or what percentage of the time do you think the guy gets dealt, just off the top of your head?
Well, again, I'll go to the 49ers the last couple of years. Deebo Samuel requested a trade 2 years ago. Wasn't traded. Brandon Ayuk requested a trade last year. Wasn't traded. So, I mean, there's two examples. Every situation is different, and I would not make a generalization other than player requests in the NFL don't seem to be as surefire a recipe out of there as it is in the NBA.
I love when you're probably looking at your phone and still trying to talk to us. I followed you for.
Right?
I know you don't know me, but I know you so well. I could tell that lad answer. You were looking at your phone. Adam Schefter, ESPN, is our guest. He's got one more minute. Shefty, what do you think now happens? What's the next move here? Will the Browns try to meet with him? Do you think he's steadfast? Where do you see this showdown going?
Those are good questions. And if I'm the Browns, I try to sit down and say, Myles, we're not going to trade you. We're going to keep you here, and we'd like to re-sign you and make you a Brown for life. What is it going to take to do that? And I would keep on him for that. And at some point, if he's dug in, he tells them, guys, I don't care what you offer me. You could offer me, half of the city of Cleveland, the Cleveland Flats. I'm not coming. I'm not re-signing, and I'm not going to be there. Like, again, that's why I come back to how far is he willing to push this? How hard line is he? How dead set is he on this? Obviously, he feels pretty strongly now, but it's February 2nd or whatever today is. Is he going to still feel the same way on March 2nd or April 2nd? Yeah. And that's what we can't answer right now.
Yeah. Adam, appreciate your time. No, you got to run. Thank you very much.
All right, there you go, Shefty on with RBS from earlier today. There's that part of it, too. Long-time contract extension, Brown for life. What does that look like? This is the difference is we assume all of those conversations were taking place behind closed doors. This statement from Myles today now puts it out into the public sphere, and so that's what changed it today. The reporting from Shefty right there with RBS, and then from Diana Rossini is that the Browns and the front office and everybody has known about this for a while. Myles' desires probably also knew about it when Andrew Berry made those comments down at the Senior Bowl about put it on the record, we're not trading him. All of those things are known, and now hopefully things go back kind of behind the scenes and they come up with a solution that makes everybody happy, with that solution being Myles Garrett remaining a Cleveland Brown for the entirety of his NFL career. We'll get some perspective on this. Andrew Siciliano is going to join us at 2 o'clock. We'll do a little Super Bowl with him as well. Dan Graziano going to join us coming up at 2:30
at some point
on the program.
I know it's big, heavy news day.
Yeah.
But the NBA got real drunk over the weekend.
It did. I mean, there's a lot going on. By the way, I mean, as if my days aren't more packed, I spent 3 hours this morning identifying the fact that Ryan Day has to hire a new offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and offensive line coach. All of that has to be done as well. So, yes, it was for the first non-NFL weekend since July.
Yeah.
Loaded.
It's all relative.
Loaded, baby. It is.
All relative, Bo.
It's all relative, brother. There's so much going on. Yeah, it is. So lots to react to on all of this in the sports world, and certainly here with the Browns with the public trade request of Myles Garrett. We'll continue to do so in the second hour of the program. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Bally Bet, official sports betting partner, your Cleveland Browns on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, second hour, Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Ballybet, 850 ESPN Cleveland, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. And we head out on the Twisted Tea Hotline, presented by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. He is the play-by-play voice of your Cleveland Browns, Andrew Siciliano. Buddy, how did when you hear this news this morning, what tracks through your mind?
Oh, I think, hi, Bo.
Hi, buddy.
I think I just let out, I think it was pretty early in the morning here. I was just actually sitting down with my first cup of coffee for the day, and I just went, like that.
Yeah, there's a look. We know the organizational stance on this of we're not trading him. Put it on the record. That's well known, and we understand certainly from the reporting from Schefter and Rossini that, and among others, that hey, the Browns have known about this. They've expected this. This is the public side of it. There's a billion different parameters and angles to this in terms of, is this contract related? Is it change of scenery related? Who knows? But now it's been out in the public sphere, and now you got to deal with it a little bit. In terms of, you've been around the league a long time. In terms of major players of this nature requesting this, what's your sense on precedent, and what is your sense on to mend the fences? What does that look like?
I think a couple of things. Number one, always, I am always a fan of keeping things behind the scenes. My first reaction was, this reminded me, and it's a very different situation, but this reminded me of arriving at the Combine a couple of years ago on Monday. Again, here's Super Bowl week Monday. This was Combine week Monday, when Kyler Murray's representative, Eric Burkhart, released a statement demanding that Kyler get his full contract extension immediately, as in yesterday, kind of thing. And you're like, all right, well, the new league year doesn't even open for 2.5 more weeks. What is this for? This is very, very different. And I think the question is here, the timeline is, did Myles, as you mentioned, Diana, but Albert Breer, friend of the program, reported the same thing, that this had been communicated before it was made public. I guess the question is, why the need to make it public? Talking to some front office people from around the league, not in Berea, but from around the league today, everyone agrees, if you truly, truly had to trade him, you get at least 2 number ones. I guess my question would be what this does if you had to trade him to your leverage. I don't think it helps, but I think Myles would be, again, if you go down that route, one of the rare players where making it public actually could spark a bidding war. The Lakers got Luka and nobody else was in on it.
Right.
And if you were listening to Windy or everyone else on Saturday night, their reaction was, wait a minute, I'm hearing from GMs around the league saying, why couldn't have I had a crack at that?
Mm-hmm. No, that's it. I agree with everything you just said there in terms of the. I think the one thing you have to remember when you go public with it, and this is from Myles' perspective, and this came out at 11 o'clock, and I'm doing the show from the team headquarters here, so I mean there's a challenge to all of this, but I think when you decide,
I'm watching, man. Like, Nathan's in Florida. Like, I mean,
every time he goes, dude, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a night every time. It's something huge like this. I told him he's not. You go anywhere else, just not there. But when you do something like this publicly, you do there is a sense, and whether we're most used to this in the NBA world than we are in the NFL world. But when you go publicly like this, usually representations answer back to the athlete is, we can go public, but if we do, this can get messy. This can now get pretty loud and pretty messy, and I've seen a lot of people thinking that could go that way as well. I know that's not the intent of the organization. The organization is to snuff this out quickly, make sure that Myles is a Cleveland Brown for life. And the absolute premium is on winning right now, and not a rebuild, but a quick flip into being competitive next year. They have the assets to do it. They have the number 2 pick in the draft to be able to do it. How do you put this genie back in the bottle if you're Andrew Berry and ownership and get this and get Myles? And by the way, he's under contract for 2 more years. They're not required to trade him. It's not like that at all. How do you kind of make this right again between him and the organization, the way it was so right for so long?
a couple of things. Number one, it is 2 more years, but this year's number is only 20, so clearly 20 is far below market value for a guy of his credentials. DPOY last year, and I made the case over the weekend, and I made it last week as well, that his advanced metrics say he should be DPOY 2 years in a row, although I don't think he's going to win the award. I think there are 2 ways. A, you give him the new contract, which AB has said publicly, and this is not necessarily, as you guys know, something that he generally does, that he wants to give him the new contract. And then B, you show him the path forward with, this is our quarterback and this is what we're doing. Now, listen, you can't make your best player your assistant GM than you are the NBA. That said, I think Myles has earned at least a spot near the table. Maybe not at the table, but near the table. You want to make him happy. Clearly, you want him to spend the rest of his career there. There are plenty of players who have requested trades in the last few years. Heck, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk.
Yep.
Now, they're wide receivers. They're not Hall of Fame defensive ends that ended up not getting traded. This doesn't mean the end, and I think that's what Browns fans need to realize. It does not mean the end. It's not a positive development, but it does not mean the end. But yeah, a new contract and a way forward would certainly help. He's going to say it's not about the money, it's about the winning. The contract's going to be wherever he ends up. He wants to win. So it's hard. How do you prove to a player that we're going to win next year?
Well, it's infinitely more hard when you have uncertainty at quarterback, right? Because there's not a free agent. Somebody's not hitting the market, right? This is in the NBA. You're clearing cap space because Patrick Mahomes is going to be a free agent. That ain't happening. These guys don't become available, which is why when Watson became available, the Browns jumped on it because it was a guy who led the NFL in passing yardage, who went 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. Who was a 3-time Pro Bowler at the age of 25. And when somebody like that becomes available, even with the off-field stuff that you knew that was there, you take it. And there were 4 teams that ran on him at the end, but there were probably 13 who made calls on Watson and wanted to know, what do we got to do to get this guy? So that's not out there. So you do have one thing that is, and that's the number 2 pick in the draft. And Nathan's coined this. I think it's the best way to put it. Either directly at number 2 or number 2 via a trade somewhere else has to bring back the quarterback solution. And this comes back to Myles' why, doesn't it? We don't know what his why is. We know what his – I mean, he said to win the Super Bowl, and I'm sure he likes to be compensated per market value of his position. So those 2 things will please him. You can do one. I don't know how you do the other until you see what number 2 – what the return is on number 2, whether a pick directly or compensation for that pick.
I truly believe his why is to win. I'm going to take him at face value there. I think he's made that clear over the last number of years, whether – you guys had the Fowler quote. He said it on the record plenty of times. His why is to win. He's going to get paid wherever he goes. Either the Browns are going to write him a big check, or the team that trades for him is going to write him a big check. He wants to win. Now, what's the best way to win? There's no, hey, we're going to trade you here and we guarantee you a Super Bowl. That just doesn't happen. He knows that. I think the Commanders are the perfect example of a team that went from 4 wins to 1 game from the Super Bowl, that it can happen with any team. I also, this is just me thinking out loud here. If this were a Caleb Jaden Daniels 1-2 top of the draft, would he feel differently? That's what my question would be. Like, if this was there is a blue chip answer at the top. Now, did people think Jaden Daniels was that blue chip answer for the Commanders at 2? No. People didn't think that. People thought it was really good. But remember, there was a debate right up to draft day. Well, do you take Drake May there? Isn't Drake May the better answer than Jaden Daniels? Drake May's still, by the way, a very good answer. The Patriots got him, and they're happy with him, and they should be. Right? I'm sure the Browns would take Drake May in this draft sitting there at number 2. They'd be happy they'd turn in the card right now. But you can turn it around. If I would say to Myles, thought experiment, Myles, I'll give you Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, let's go crazy, let's say Aaron Rodgers. Let's go super crazy in Matthew Stafford, but even if the Rams were to trade him, the Browns couldn't give him. He wants $50 million a year. They can't do that. So let's say I'll give you one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I will give you Abdul Carter to play opposite you at 2, and I'll give you Travion Henderson at 33,
mm-hmm.
and your new contract. What do you think?
Yeah. That's what we don't know, right? We don't like,
right.
And what is that? You just gave the perfect. What I would say is that doesn't win the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And
Does it get you into the playoffs?
Maybe. I mean, you're in a division that has Lamar, Burrow, and Pittsburgh, who never loses. So, like, Burrow went 9-8 with a Triple Crown winner
they also never
receiver.
win.
They don't, but he did get to a Super Bowl. Like, he's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to an AFC Championship game. So, there's that level of thing that you're chasing. It's such a difficult question because in this league, there are the teams who can contend, and then there are the teams, and you mentioned Geno Smith, and it's kind of the perfect example because it's Geno, Bakes like this in Tampa. Like, you're good enough to get in the dance, but also you're good enough to get the door slammed in your face before you advance very far. There's a ceiling on it, right? So it's impossible for me to know what makes Myles tick most. Is what makes him because the scenario you just played out, richest defensive end, all of that, plus Geno and Travion, that's a return to competitiveness right away. That's contending in the postseason. You 9-8, 10-7, something like that right away. You're right back in the mix. That's no closer, though, in my opinion, to winning a Super Bowl than you are right now.
Well, I'd say you're closer because you're in the tournament, but
you see my point, though. There's a ceiling.
You know,
there's a ceiling
I see your
on
point.
it. There's a really hard ceiling on it.
It's a heck of a lot better than 3-14.
No doubt.
No. I totally.
It's just like last year, though, with Joe. Like that was an awesome run, and everybody enjoyed it. It's the most fun that you've had as a Browns fan probably since Bake against the Jets on a Thursday night. But there was also you were not beating Mahomes. You were not beating Bills. You weren't beating those type of teams with that approach. So that's the hard thing and the reality is landing the quarterback is the hardest thing to do in this league. It's so hard to land that guy. But we know if you don't have one of the elite ones, you're cooked.
Right. And look, we don't need to replay the Deshaun thing, but
yeah,
that's why
it happened.
You guys say this every day. It's why I swing a miss. I'll take it a step further. If I'm not trying to rewrite history, don't scream back at your radio at me right now. But if it had worked, $46 million right now is below market for the quarterback.
Yeah.
I know I'm not trying to rewrite history here, but it's actually below market.
Mm-hmm.
If the deal had worked. It didn't, obviously. We know that.
No. And there was no way. That's why you took the swing, though, and that's why you're in this spot. We've been doing these positional reviews every day, and at the end of every one, Z and I will be like, wow, it seems like we need couple of guys in this room. We need a couple of guys in this room. We need a guy in this room. Who knows with JOK? We need a guy in that room. We need a number 2 receiver. Like you need another tackle. It's like, wow, there's all of a sudden there's a lot of things that you kind of need to replenish this roster from all of the draft picks. You lost a lot of picks in the Watson deal. And so you're starting to feel the effect of that from a roster standpoint. So a critical offseason, obviously, for the organization. And this just adds one more wrinkle to it that at least publicly I'm sure they wish wasn't out there.
Yeah, and I think that's the key point here. And I am curious as to the timeline, like when Myles was on Hard Knocks, when was that shot, right? And,
good question out of you.
What was said, what was said in the exit interview. I was sitting there with AB, Zach and McKay and Kelsey Rudo last week when they did their thing in Mobile. It wasn't as if some giant flag was, it wasn't like Baker midfield planting a flag.
No.
Right? It was just, the question was asked, I was like, no, I'm reiterating what was said on Monday, Monday after the season, not going to trade him. You can actually hear me in the background go, not even for 3? I was just kind of auditing the class because, Zach's like, not even for 2. And I'm not even for 3. AB didn't hear me. I think you had the music blasting in the background from the Senior Bowl practices. We're sitting in the stands. But, I know Schefter brought up the Khalil Mack thing this morning. Last time Khalil Mack was 27, Myles is 29. If you go back and look at that trade, the Raiders had to give back a 2 in that trade. It was not a good trade for the Raiders. They got the 2 number 1s, but they gave back a 2? Like, that's absurd.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there is a precedent for this.
No. There was none I could think of. I mean, around here locally, I thought of Kyrie, in that kind of came out of nowhere for us, but people around the Cavs said, "Oh yeah, we thought maybe this was possible." That's kind of the last one, around town.
But NBA trades like that happen every.
They do, yeah. And Kyrie's not Myles. No,
he's not, and I don't. The crazy thing too about this first round is I'm trying to find the last time it happened. Everyone's got their pick. There's no team with 2 number 1s this year,
which is rare.
All 32 teams own their pick.
Yeah.
So you can't look at it and go, well, the Dolphins got 2 1s. Nope, they don't. Everybody has their pick. And I'm trying to figure out the last time that had happened, but it has been a while. Like in 23, the Dolphins got docked a pick for tampering with Brady, and then back maybe 7-8 years ago, the Patriots got docked a pick. That was the year Emmanuel Ogbah went. Didn't he go 32nd overall, where he would have been a first-round pick, but he was actually a second-round pick?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So there's that rarity to it. There's a couple of ways this is a bunch of noise now, and then tonight, the Super Bowl teams they've arrived in New Orleans, and the NFL will turn its attention to Super Bowl week. This will be a topic of conversation at Super Bowl week. My guess is from the organization that they would want this to quiet down at least publicly, and who knows from Myles' side where this goes from here. But it's now out there in the public record, and it's something you're going to have to deal with. The reality is that there won't be anything one way or another on this, either new contract or any other thing, if the organization goes against what AB has said, that they're not moving off of him, and I have no indication that they would ever break stance on that. You got some time here. I mean, my God, buddy, it's February 3rd.
Yeah, we're a month before the start of the new league here on the 12th. What I would say is this, while it's out publicly, I can't imagine that people around the league are that surprised. Good GMs pick up the phone and ask all the time. I guarantee you the phone had rang in Berea last year. I guarantee you it rang. Someone called to say, because that's what GMs are supposed to do, just like you and your fantasy team, right?
Yep.
Hey, would you ever trade that guy? That's their job. That's what they do, right? So I guarantee you someone called, and I guarantee you someone has called since the season. Now it's out publicly. You question what this does for leverage. Most GMs would tell you this hurts your leverage. I would say that he's the rare player who is still 29, who is that good where it might draw up interest for the few GMs or the other GMs that hadn't contemplated making a call. Or what it does is it makes an owner tell the GM, hey, did you ever look into that?
Yep.
No, don't know that I should. Well, I think you should, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Again, that is if they were to trade him. I don't want him traded. I would love to see him end his career there as well. I like the guy wants what's best for him. Both can be true. I want what's best for him, and as a fan and organizationally, I would love to see him stay. If that doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but it's what I want. It's what I would vote for.
You continued, I'll get you out of here on this, you continue to reside in the lovely Southern California region. When you wake up Sunday, when do you become aware of the Luka trade, and how's it hit you? How's it hit that town?
I was up Saturday night. Yeah, with the time. So funny story. I was sitting on the couch and I was watching whatever college basketball game my good friend Sean Farnham was calling. It was it was background noise. Honestly,
right.
I've been watching some show on Apple. TV. I turned it off. TV went to ESPN, I'm sitting there looking at my laptop, and should I go to bed? Should I go to bed? And I hear the play-by-play guy say, "Oh, how about this? Luka Doncic just got traded to the Lakers." And Farnham goes, "Come on, that's not, no, that didn't happen." That's what it says here. Details coming up on SportsCenter after the game. And shut up. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
And then I open up Twitter, and everybody had the same reaction, like he got hacked, right?
Yeah.
And I stayed up for an hour and a half watching the coverage. I mean, it's just absurd. Like the idea that you would trade. Look, I get it. This is them saying, "Hey, you're fat. We don't want to pay you, and we're moving on." But the idea that you would get AD's a heck of a player. AD's probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame one day.
Yeah.
But AD and number one?
That's
what?
Right.
It's like, I can't think of an NFL analogy, but it would be kind of like saying, hey, we don't want to give Josh Allen his third contract, which he probably gets this offseason, by the way. We don't want to give Josh Allen his third contract, so let's see. Matthew Stafford has won one championship like AD. He's into his 30s. He's probably played his best ball.
Yep.
Probably behind him. So we'll trade Josh Allen for AD and number one. I'm sorry, Josh Allen for Matthew Stafford and number one.
Yeah.
No one in Buffalo would ever do that.
No,
deal.
And it's even worse than that because number ones in football are almost worth more than the back half of ones in basketball. So, like, it's even that doesn't do it justice.
Isn't the one like 3 years from now?
Yeah, it's 2029 when Luka's going to have a great team around him in L.A. Like, big deal. You're going to be picking 27th. I mean, it's...
I mean, who trades for a 2029 first-round pick?
Buddy, they've done this, and this is maybe why... I mean, you think about it. Wilt, Kareem, Shaquille, Gasol, LeBron. I mean, Kobe, Magic, and Worthy were all draft pick compensation guys where they made trades to go pick in the draft. But they've done this for 60 years. Like, this is just what they do. It's just crazy to me, like, to do a deal like this and not open it up to the league and say, hey, what could you offer? The only thing I can think, and I don't know if I'm sure somebody who does the NBA all the time has said this, but like the only thing I can think is like Luka's folks were like, now they say that they didn't know anything about this, but if Luka's people were like, we will only sign an extension with the Lakers, nobody else, and we'll let it be known to anybody else you trade us to that we'll only sign that extension with the Lakers. That's the only thing only scenario I can come up with.
But Bo, he lost $100 million.
I know it.
Because of the Supermax rules,
right.
And then go from Texas to California with state taxes.
Crazy.
He lost 9 figures in the deal.
Yep.
9 figures.
It's funny when they kept saying like, oh yeah, he's overweight. I'm like, well, was he overweight last year when he led him to the finals? Was he overweight then? Because that seemed to be fine. Like, that seemed to work out just fine for them. Like, it's crazy. And it's always the Lakers.
I mean, and he got to the finals and never attempted to play defense. But correct me if I'm wrong, he didn't play defense the entire year anyway, so this is now a surprise. I loved how he's getting hammered in the finals. He's not playing defense. Yeah, have you watched all year?
Right. Man, what a day.
Where have you been?
This is who he is. Yeah, but
he's not going to play defense.
I don't have any point of reference on a 25-year-old traded in the middle of the night who's a top 3 player in the world. Like, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
To the point that nobody in any sport thought the report was legitimate.
No, not even a whisper of it. Appreciate you, buddy, as always.
Likewise. Talk to you soon.
All right, there he is. Play-by-play voice Andrew Siciliano joining the program on the Twisted Tea Hotline, presented by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Hey, get your little ones involved in the dog pound and join the Junior Browns Backers, the Browns official kids club presented by the University Hospital's Rainbow Babies and Children's in association with Cardinal Credit Union. For kids age 4 to 12, members can enjoy events, activities, and more. Join by tomorrow, February 4th, to score an invite to our next event, Junior Browns Backers Bash. Visit juniorbrownsbackers.com to join today. Dan Graziano, ESPN, going to join us coming up next. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. OBM, the preferred provider of copiers and document services for your Cleveland Browns. They'll tackle any size office. Call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. NFL bombshell today around 11 o'clock. Defensive end Myles Garrett officially requesting a trade from the Cleveland Browns. This being Cleveland Browns Daily, that hits pretty close to home. For perspective, we head out on the Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea Hotline. Official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns, Dan Graziano, great friend of the program, ESPN, joining us. Dan, how did this news hit you? Did you sense there were rumblings of this? What was your reaction and when you first heard that this was coming?
So I think, it's tough to really get a handle on like sort of what the player is unhappy about if it's not the contract, right? So I don't think I did have a sense of this. I think there was a sense that maybe they would talk about a contract extension this offseason, even though there's 2 years left on the deal. And I don't think that there have been talks that have progressed to the point where, one side or the other would feel exasperated. So I think we can take Myles at his word that the motivation for this is I'd like to go somewhere where it feels like they're closer to winning. And so, no, I did not personally have an inkling of it. It's a situation where obviously everybody around the league is now paying attention. What will Cleveland do? They continue to say they're not going to trade him. But is it possible to keep him there and make him happy in a way that makes the request go away? I think that we've seen it. I mean, this isn't the NBA where oftentimes a trade request means a surefire trade. In the NFL, we've seen guys make trade requests and stay put and be happy and end up getting contract extensions. So it can be done, but it really depends on how dug in Myles Garrett is, and he's a unique guy, and I don't say that in any kind of critical way. He's a guy that has some very, I think, definite ideas about how he wants things to be, and if they're not right, I'm just not sure that there's an amount of money that solves that.
Dan, organizationally here, they've made it pretty clear. Look, we're not. Andrew Berry on record at the Senior Bowl. Yeah. Lock it in. We're not trading him. Nothing happening here. Obviously, I'm assuming they had no interest in this being done publicly. From Myles' side of it, and when you've seen players who have done this before, and we've seen this, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, we've seen this from time to time. Aaron Rodgers, where guys demand, and then you kind of go back in on it. What's the next step? What do those next steps look like? Because as you mentioned, there's, and we don't know what Myles' why is. It's hard to get in his head. I don't know if it's necessarily. Maybe he wants to be $20 million guaranteed this year. Or $20 million is what his number is this year. He's probably saying that's really underpaid. So there's that part of it too.
Oh.
How do we mend all of this?
So it depends on, again, what he wants. If what he really, really wants is to not be on the Browns anymore, right, regardless of money, then there's a couple potential pressure points, right? There's the start of free agency, which is a little over a month away now, when teams are kind of making their plans and their budgets. Like, teams will be pressing the Browns at that point, say, hey, what's the deal? Are you going to trade him? Are you going to wait? Are you going to hold on to him? Is there something we can offer you that gets you interested? And then if nothing happens then there's the draft at the end of April when, you're talking about, if you're serious about trading him, you would rather do it before this year's draft because you know what the picks are that you're getting back, right? As opposed to if you wait till May or June, you're trading for 2026 picks and you don't know what those are going to exactly be. You don't know where these teams that are trading for him are going to finish. Presumably, if they have Myles Garrett, their picks would be lower than if they didn't, right? So, I think those are the two pressure points. And then the other thing is, it's a tricky trade for the Browns to make because of the way his contract's been restructured so much. The dead money that would accelerate on.
I think we lost Dan there. Maybe cut out on Dan there as he was going
through.
You
designate a player as opposed to in first. Oh, hello?
I think we have Dan back. We got you, bud. We dropped for a second, buddy. I'm not sure if Dan can hear me.
Okay.
There he is.
What was I saying when it cut off? I apologize.
You're right. You're good, buddy. You were talking about how the complication of the trade would be if they were able to entertain it, something to this point they've said they're not willing to do.
Right. They'd have to take on $36 million in dead money on this year's cap. You can't do how they do a post-June 1st cut where they cut the guy in March and designate him a post-June 1st cut and they can spread the cap hit out over 2 years. You can't do that with a trade. You have to actually wait till after June 1st to make the trade if you're going to do that. And by that point, like we were talking about, you're dealing for picks, so you don't know exactly what they're going to be. So I think this is a matter of if you get through free agency and the draft and no trade has happened, then you circle back team and player and figure out, okay, is there something we can do here to make you happy and keep you here? And if not, then you're talking about a training camp holdout situation.
Yeah, and Dan, the one thing that I think we all would agree would be a kind of a panacea for all of this is if you were to have that franchise quarterback. Now, they picked number 2 in this draft. You've heard a lot of people say this is not the strongest draft. Okay, I'll take them at their word, but you're going to get a chance to get a signal caller at 2 if you want. There's not a whole lot out there in terms of free agency or via trade. They never are. I mean, these guys are hard to come by, which is how the Watson deal happened to begin with, is you get an elite talent in the prime of his career. That's how that bidding war happened. What path at quarterback can they take? What are you hearing in terms of trying to make that a little bit more of a situation that would be more likable for a guy like Myles if it is indeed about winning a Super Bowl as his priority?
Right. So then you have a situation where you sit with him and you say, here's our plan for the offseason. Here's how we think it'll make us competitive in a short period of time. Maybe not 2025, but 2026. You can see this plan coming together. And it'll work. And then you have to try and sell him on that, right? So quarterback is essential. And the Browns, as you know, are in a very tricky situation with regard to quarterback, considering the guaranteed money is still left on Deshaun Watson's contract and the mystery around when you're ever going to see him again. So do you draft a guy at 2 that you believe in and you feel like is going to be a franchise guy for the long term? Do you draft the Penn State edge rusher at 2 and then trade Myles, right? You replace Myles with a edge rusher on a rookie contract, right? So there's a couple. But if you're talking about trying to keep him happy, it probably involves a significant contract extension that makes him the highest paid defensive player and keeps him there probably for the rest of his career. And selling him on here's how we're going to make sure that we get competitive in a short period of time. He's been there 8 years. There haven't been many good ones, right? So, it seems like it might be a tough sell for someone who's experienced, all he's experienced there.
Yeah, talking to the great Dan Graziano, ESPN. Obviously, it is Super Bowl week as well, and that will be the headlines around the league starting into this afternoon and the rest of the week. Just from a league perspective, this Kansas City opportunity here, Dan, no one's done this 3-in-a-row thing. It's hard to wrap your head around 7 straight AFC championships and now going for playing in 7 straight AFC championship games and then also now going for that 3rd straight Super Bowl. Just from a historical perspective, obviously, we've never seen anything like it. What will that be the overwhelming story this week down in New Orleans?
Oh, I think so. I mean, look, the Eagles they have their storylines, and everybody's watching. Saquon Barkley's a guy people pay a lot of attention to, and I think his opportunity to go for the Super Bowl, and the Eagles' opportunity to get another shot at the Chiefs after losing to them 2 years ago in a close one. But yeah, I think the dominant storyline is, can the Chiefs do something that's never been done? Anytime there's an opportunity for something that's never happened before, right? Like that's front and center, and it will be. I mean, there's never been a team that won 2 in a row and even got back to the Super Bowl the next year. So they've already done something, put themselves in a position that no one else has ever been in. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously, around the league, right? Whatever. I mean, you can hear, you can hear whatever. You can hear admiration, you can hear grousing, you can hear it. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that they're in a zone that's one of the all-time runs in sports history. And can they cash it in with a 3rd straight? Obviously, is the dominant storyline. The Eagles, I think a lot of people would tell you, have a better roster, but they would have said the same thing about the 49ers last year, and the Chiefs just sort of find a way. So can they do it again? And if so, where do we now talk about Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and the all-time pantheon of the people that have done what they do?
Yeah, there's that little thing with the Mahomes-Brady thing, right, where, who knows if you'll ever get to 7, but to do something that Brady hasn't done, it's kind of the LeBron-Michael thing, like winning with multiple teams versus winning with one. That's something that kind of can change that conversation a little bit if he gets 3 in a row. So, incredible. Going to be a fun week down there. Dan, hope to see you at the Combine, buddy, and good luck down in New Orleans.
maybe by the time we see it at the combine, we'll have a little more sense of where this Myles Garrett thing is headed.
Certainly
Hopefully.
could. Yeah,
We'll see.
certainly could. Thanks, buddy.
Take care, guys.
All right, there he is, the great Dan Graziano, joining us on the Twisted Tea Hotline, presented by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. We'll reflect on all of this, go over some of the other big sports stories of the day, but obviously today is dominated by the trade request from Myles Garrett. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily. It's presented by Ballybet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, OBN, the preferred provider of copiers and document services for your Cleveland Browns. They'll tackle any size office at 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. We've been discussing it for much of the 2 hours today. The news broke around 11 o'clock. The statement from Myles Garrett requesting a trade from the Cleveland Browns. The requesting is the kind of the thing to circle there from the standpoint of he's still under contract for 2 more years.
Correct.
There is a contract extension that I'm sure he would like signed, and much of the reporting done today, if he were to be traded, would result in not only a trade but then a new contract extension with that new team. We know that the Cleveland Browns as an organization have said not happening. Put it on the record. We're not trading him. There's no you call straight to voicemail is kind of the situation that Andrew Berry described. So that's kind of the standstill of this. We've also seen a bunch of reporting from Schefter and Breer and Rossini about that the organization knew about this request and has for a while, and so for them, this isn't much of a surprise. It damn sure is a surprise to us. that it was made today. I can tell you that. And so that's where it is now. And so the question, there's really a couple of paths. If you are to hold firm and say we're not trading him, and no reason to believe that they wouldn't, if that is the case, then the number one thing you have to do is mend fences with Myles through his representation to get that all back locked in. Is that a contract extension? Is that proof of plan?
Yeah.
Is that, hey, this is what we're going to do? This is something that happens in the NBA all the time. It rarely, if ever, happens in the NFL where you have kind of like, hey, this is our plan. We were led to believe that there would be some of that took place at the end of the season. Who knows? As I pressed Dan Graziano on this, and Andrew and I talked about this as well, like really the quarterback is kind of the jumping off point is what is the plan at that position. What we know is, yes, Deshaun Watson has 2 more years under his contract. We know that he had a second Achilles injury that happened at the end of the season. We know that the timetable on that is a year at least. It is very unlikely that he plays for the Cleveland Browns next season just based on the physical limitations of that injury. So you're going to have an entirely new quarterback room. I mean, DTR could be back there, but at least 2 more faces, maybe 3 going into next season. So what does that look like? Is it a Band-Aid? Is it a Band-Aid and the number 2 pick? Is it a Band-Aid and we'll deal with the long-term down the road? Those are all questions that need to be kind of fleshed out. And the reality is, while they're doing the due diligence on all of that stuff, if it's a quarterback at number 2, that's not until the end of April. It's a quarterback via trade. That can't be, as if I understand the way Dan pointed it, January or June 1st designation was kind of the thinking on that. And then free agency, there just isn't anything out there. I mean, you can't be in the Sam Darnold business because of what he's going to demand on the market, and you don't have that type of cap flexibility. So in terms of proving your plan at quarterback, that can't happen right away.
Yeah. No, there's lots of options. And we're going to talk through them all for the next 12-plus weeks until we get through the draft. Free agency will come before that. Free agency will start. The tampering period can start March 10th, I believe, 10th through 12th.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on the 12th, you can start signing guys. And, I mean, you could agree in theory or in principle to trades, but nothing can go through right away. So there's a lot on the table. But can they right the ship here, get everybody on the same page, and can they do it behind closed doors?
Yeah,
because it sounds like neither side wants to move right now. That doesn't mean that they can't move, but right now, they've put the flag in the sand, and this is where we're marking it.
We've had in recent years, Debo, Ayuk, Rodgers. We've had a lot of guys who demand Chief. Yeah, that have demanded those things or requested. This is a request, not a demand, so it's semantics, but there's, I think, a little bit of difference in tone. So we've had plenty of those where a request is made, a demand has been made, and then you're able to pull back and go, actually, we can find common ground here. Usually that common ground is in the way of extra funds, but this is the part we don't know, and you got to get in Myles' head to wrap your head around that. We don't know what the number 1 driver for him is. I don't know if the number 1 driver is I want to be the highest paid defensive player, non-quarterback in the game. I want to be higher than Justin Jefferson.
Sure.
If I don't get that, I don't have any idea. I mean, we're trying to guess what's inside someone's head, or is it his word that in his statement that he wants to go win Super Bowls, because we are a ways away from that as currently constructed. Now, if number 2 elicits you a player like Jaden Daniels, then you're right back. I mean, look at Washington. They are right back. They landed on that kid, and he lived up to potential, and away we go. And I always bristle when we talk about how nobody thinks these quarterbacks have elite traits and all of that. Nonsense. I don't believe that. The idea that people can have that conclusion made right now. Nobody thought Jaden Daniels would be Jaden Daniels a year ago.
Absolutely
We
not.
lived it. We were over there. We didn't have a pick, but we still had the quarterback conversations. We had them with everybody who joined us. What do you make of these quarterbacks at this draft? Caleb?
Everybody else.
Big, deep drop. Then Jaden and Drake May. It wasn't like he was in conversation with Caleb. So, no one was right about those guys. Some people liked them more than others. You got a long time to figure this out. I think Cam Ward's got elite traits. I know Shedeur Sanders has elite traits. Toughness, accuracy, those are elite traits. So you can flip it quick, and really that 2 pick is the only way to truly flip it quick.
Yes.
Everything else is a Band-Aid.
Yes, but this is why the NFL does everything they can to ensure that the teams at the bottom can get good quick.
Yes.
It's all about the parity. It's all about setting up everybody for success. And this is how you do it, but you got to hit on the pick. And you got to make the right pick at number 2.
Yeah.
And what comes of that will be fascinating to watch, but I agree with you. I mean, you can't tell me that there aren't quarterbacks worth drafting here. And whether it's go get one at number 2, go get one on day 2 or day 3.
Take 2 of them.
Yep.
Yeah, sort it out.
Complete
Until you
the whole
have
room.
that figured out, the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get that part figured out. The next step in this, I think, will be a return to normalcy this week in the league. I think you're going to get – the teams have arrived. I know they were there Sunday, so I think tonight is like the press night or whatever.
Yeah, it's the first of 2, I believe.
Okay. So which one's the circus? Is that tonight or tomorrow?
I think they both might be. I think tonight starts at – I think tonight is the night.
Okay. Tonight is the
2
circus.
minutes.
Yeah,
Two
I think the quarterbacks will talk, and we'll see what all that becomes. I mean, you've been in those.
Oh,
they've only gotten bigger from a circus standpoint.
There was a guy from L.A. radio who was dressed as a Viking. I think his name's Vic the Brick. Was dressed as a Viking. I remember Inez Sainz, TV Azteca, quite well. I remember another TV Azteca reporter showing up with a binky. There was another one who legitimately proposed to Tom Brady in a wedding dress. That happened. I was at one of those. I was at one in Indy where Russell Wilson's now wife, Ciara was walking around and was such a stunningly beautiful. It didn't even seem like a normal human being. Like, it felt like she was like AI generated. And then 2 minutes later, Gisele Bündchen was walking around, and you went, well, there's another one. Where do these creatures where do they come from like this? It was nuts. Absolutely nuts. No, Super Bowl Media Day is a barrel of laughs. It's a lot of fun.
Yes.
It's not utter nonsense.
Correct.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, the great Bubba Ventrone will join us in studio.
We get a little Senior Bowl reacts and see what he saw firsthand down there. He was kind of the star of it with all of his MC work he did.
He was. Yeah. A nice little ending to that game as well. Nice little sentimental. And then we got to get to everything that happened in the world of sports.
Crazy weekend. Absolutely crazy weekend. Today just added to it. All right, there you go, kids. The next level is coming up next. Thanks for listening, everybody. Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Bally Bet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns on 850 ESPN Cleveland.